Hello, New York Giants fans, and welcome to the Valentine's Views podcast here on Big Blue View Radio, part of your SB Nation family of podcasts. I'm your host, Ed Valentine of Big Blue View. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. And please remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts if you're checking us out that way. All right, I was struggling for a topic for Thursday's podcast, and that because the Giants were off on Wednesday and didn't practice, there wasn't any new news or anything new to talk about. But as I was struggling for a topic, I was also working on this weekend's Big Blue View mailbag. And what you're ending up with today is a little bit of a preview of some of what you're going to read in the mailbag on Saturday. Seems to be a common theme in this week's mailbag, and that has been people questioning the New York Giants coaching staff, questioning defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, questioning offensive coordinator Mike Kafka, questioning offensive line coach Bobby Johnson, wondering if there's going to be changes in the Giants coaching staff if things don't improve over the next 14 games. And what you'll read on Saturday is basically me in a lot of instances defending Giants coaches. And that's what we're going to talk about here a little bit today. Listen, Brian Daboll won a Coach of the Year award last year. Mike Kafka got 4 interviews for head coaching positions, nearly got a 5th interview, was mentioned as a possibility for an opening at Northwestern, his alma mater. Wink Martindale got an interview with the Indianapolis Colts. And Bobby Johnson has been a very successful offensive line coach in Indianapolis, in Buffalo, and now he's with the Giants trying to develop a young and, to this point, somewhat undermanned offensive line. These guys have not forgotten how to coach. If you recall a year ago, when Brian Daboll was winning that Coach of the Year award, he was lauded far and wide, including here at Big Blue View, for the coaching staff that he hired, for going out of his comfort zone, for hiring some coaches he hadn't worked with before, not for hiring his cronies, his buddies, which is basically what Joe Judge did, not for hiring retreads who couldn't get jobs elsewhere, which is partially what Pat Shurmur was forced to do, because the brutal truth of the matter is there weren't a lot of highly qualified candidates who really wanted to come and work for Pat Shurmur. It just was they just didn't. They saw him as a failed head coach in Cleveland, and a lot of top quality assistant coaches, guys with choices, just didn't want to hitch their fortunes to the Shurmur bandwagon. So that's Brian Daboll didn't do that. He hired a few people like Bobby Johnson, who he had worked with in Buffalo, kept some of the Giants coaches like Jerome Henderson, the defensive backs coach, like Thomas McGahee, the special teams coach, but along the way also hired a lot of highly qualified, highly skilled people that he had never worked with before. And the Giants were looked at as having one of the best coaching staffs in football. In all honesty, people inside the league, people who analyze the game for a living, will still tell you the same thing. The Giants are extremely well coached, that the Giants have a tremendous coaching staff. Let's talk first about the defense. There's a lot of questions about Wink Martindale and blitzing 80% of the time the other night against the San Francisco 49ers. He's blitzed on more than 50% of Giants defensive snaps so far this season. A lot of questions about whether he was a bad hire, whether his scheme is just too easy for defenses to figure out, whether players aren't listening to Martindale anymore, whether the scheme is just all wrong, and Martindale just is no longer a fit in today's NFL, and I think that's a bunch of nonsense. I think that what Wink Martindale does is different than what most most defensive coordinators do. He believes in the blitz. He believes in pressure schemes. He believes in sending players from all different kinds of angles. He believes in confusing the offensive line and pressuring quarterbacks that way. He doesn't believe in four-man rush and play coverage. He believes in trying to dictate, and there's nothing wrong with that scheme. There's nothing different about Wink Martindale this year than there was a year ago when Martindale was lauded for helping the Giants build a defense that helped get them to the playoffs, when everybody loved the pressure breaks pipes philosophy and the aggression of Wink Martindale after a couple of years of Patrick Graham's zone heavy sort of try to fool the quarterback with coverage, bend but don't break sort of Graham philosophy that he employed. But we've seen three bad games. We've seen the Giants on defense play 12 quarters of football. We've seen them play one good quarter of football. And what I'm going to say, and what my belief is the defensive issues are not a Martindale problem. Yes, I have some issues with the usage of Kayvon Thibodeau. I think that I would like to see Kayvon Thibodeau go forward more often instead of dropping into coverage as much as he has. Yes, I would like to see Isaiah Simmons get on the field a little bit more. Yes, I understand that Xavier McKinney, who has not been as productive under Martindale as he was in 2021 under Patrick Graham. Yes, I know he's being used differently. He's not playing as much too high. He's not playing as much zone coverage facing the quarterback. Maybe McKinney just is not the type of safety who really thrives in a Martindale system. I don't know that for a fact yet. Well, there's still 14 games to play. We'll see how it works out. My belief is this: you can quibble about the way certain guys have been used. I've talked about Adoree Jackson being used in the slot, which I understand why, because of the emergence of Trey Hawkins. The best trio the Giants have is Tay Banks, Trey Hawkins, Adoree Jackson, and Jackson's the only one who can go into the slot in that group. So I understand why he's being used there. I don't think it's the best spot for him, but I understand why he's being utilized there. The fact of the matter is, what's going on with the Giants defense is a player performance issue. It's not a coaching issue. The tackling is a player issue. The Giants don't teach tackling any different than anyone else in the NFL. They don't work on tackling less than other teams in the NFL. Nobody really works on tackling in the NFL anymore. You're not allowed to hit. Nobody tackles in practice. You work on form. You hit a tackling donut once in a while. You hit a pad. You don't hit each other. You might thud, but that's about it. You don't tackle and bring anyone to the ground, so you never work on tackling. You either can or you can't. You either have the desire and the physicality to do it or you don't. And to this point, the Giants have been a very poor tackling team. You look at performances across the board. Thibodeau has underperformed. McKinney has underperformed. Leonard Williams has underperformed. Bobby Okereke, the $40 million linebacker that the Giants signed in the offseason as a free agent, has underperformed. Those things are not on Wink Martindale. Those are player issues. Those are players who have been in positions to make plays and haven't made them, who have had opportunities to make plays and haven't gotten it done. So that's not Martindale. It is up to Martindale to to try to figure out if certain guys aren't getting the job done, what else can we do? Are there other players we can do? Can we adjust the scheme a little bit? Maybe to give Xavier McKinney a few more opportunities to face the quarterback and play zone. I don't know if those things are possible the way the Giants are constructed and the way that Martindale prefers to play defense. But for me, it's a player performance issue. It's not a coaching issue. And really, when you look at the offense, I feel the same way about the offense. Mike Kafka got 4 head coaching interviews because he's an up and coming head coach. He's a brilliant offensive mind. He and Brian Daboll understand how to build an offense, how to run an offense. I have some issues with why the Giants haven't run the ball at times. I have some issues with the lack of playing time thus far and the lack of targets for Jalen Hyatt. But the flip side of that is if Hyatt plays, who comes off the field? Is it Darius Slayton, who's been the leading receiver for the Giants for the last 3 years? Is it Isaiah Hodgins, who was a terrific find for the Giants the second half of last year? Um, is it Daniel Bellinger? And if you take Bellinger off the field, are you sticking Darren Waller as an inline tight end where he doesn't belong? So I want to see Hyatt get more targets. I want to see him get more snaps, and I'm sure that he will going forward. But Mike Kafka did not forget how to call plays. Yes, I have some quibbles with a play call here and a play call there. I can remember back in the day at Big Blue View, everybody used to argue about Kevin Gilbride's offense, which was terrible, 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 terrible until it wasn't, and it resulted in a long touchdown play. And may not have always looked like the smoothest operation in the world, but it worked pretty well because it helped the Giants win 2 Super Bowls and helped Eli Manning get 2 Super Bowl MVPs. But when it comes to Kafka, he knows what he's doing. Brian Daboll knows what he's doing on offense. They didn't forget how to coach. You've had a 3-game window here where things haven't gone incredibly well. Saquon Barkley missed one of those games. Wan'Dale Robinson, a guy who they're counting on to make plays, is just coming back. The offensive line, because of injuries to Andrew Thomas and Ben Bredesen, and underperformance by Mark Lewinsky, a veteran who was counted on to be their right guard. Offensive line has been a bit of a mess. Let's see what happens here as the offensive line begins to stabilize. Once Saquon Barkley comes back, I don't know if that's going to be Monday against Seattle or if it's going to be after that against Miami or Buffalo down the road just a little bit. I suspect that Kafka and Daboll will look like better offensive coaches once that line stabilizes, once Wan'Dale Robinson is fully integrated into the offense, once Saquon Barkley comes back. And I suspect Bobby Johnson will look like a better offensive line coach with a healthy Andrew Thomas, with a healthy Ben Bredesen, the left side of the offensive line that they counted on. So I don't think it has anything to do with these guys being terrible coaches or forgetting how to coach. I've had my issues in the past with special teams coordinator Thomas McGahee. The difference, I think, with McGahee, who has a reputation as a terrific coach, who's been a Giants special teams coach for a long time now. The difference with McGahee is that I think we have several seasons now worth of issues that you can go back and look at where you can say, even though McGahee has a reputation as a terrific special teams coordinator, you can point to underperformance in coverage in a lot of situations. You can point to inability to really generate much of a return game, inconsistencies in the punt game. You can point to a lot of things if you want to point the finger at any specific coach on the Giants roster, I would point toward McGahee for the simple reason that there's a lengthy body of work that allows us to say there have been problems for more than a 3-game stretch. I think I understand that everybody wants to find a reason. Everybody wants to find a scapegoat. Everybody wants to point the finger of blame at someone. For me, this is a player issue. There's too many players not performing up to their capabilities. That's not the coach's scheme. That's on the players. There's too many players who have been hurt. Again, you do the best you can with the players that you have. I'm not sure what the Giants were expected or were supposed to do in the situation they were in the other night against the 49ers. The 49ers were just a much better team, and the Giants were depleted without Barkley, without Thomas, without Ojulari, without Bredesen. And even with those guys, their roster's not close to San Francisco's. So I'm not sure what they were supposed to do or what they were expected to do. That was always going to be a very difficult game for the Giants to compete in. But as I said, the basic point for me is that you can quibble about a lot of things with the coaching staff, and I have and I will, and I'll point out what I think is incorrect when I think it's incorrect. But mostly what we see with the Giants is a player issue. It's up to the players to tackle. It's up to the players to be where they're supposed to be. It's up to the players to make the plays that are there to be made. The coaches can't do that. So count me as one who is not ready to say, oh, the Giants need a new offensive coordinator. They need a new defensive coordinator. They need a new offensive line coach. They need to throw out the defensive scheme and run the same scheme everybody else in the league runs. Uh, give this some time. The Giants have a top-notch coaching staff. See if they can figure it out. See if they can get better performance out of this roster going forward. Giants have a game coming up Monday night against the Seahawks that they really need to win. Difficult games coming up the 2 weeks after that on the road against teams with high-flying offenses in the Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills. So we'll see what happens on Monday night. But with that said, Giants fans, that's the show for today. That's me getting up on my soapbox about as much as I do these days. So those are my thoughts on the state of the Giants coaching staff and on the reasons largely for some of the issues that we've seen so far this season. All right, Giants fans, thank you very, very much for listening. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.